subject regression to the library, and I'm April Young.
I'm William Jane.
I'm Heather Leung.
I'm Allison Wayne.
The question we are examining today is how well can the age of nonfiction books predict the total number of times that nonfiction books are checked out from the school library? We chose this question because we wanted to know whether students prefer classic nonfiction books over the modern nonfiction books. If they prefer classic nonfiction books or older books, then these classic nonfiction books will on average be checked out more than modern nonfiction books. We realize that many students only come to the library to check out what is needed for their English classes. Usually these books are old classics because English classes rarely teach new pop culture books. We wanted to see if this correlation between older books and more checkouts exist.
To collect data, we systematically sampled. Our question pertained only to nonfiction books, so our population was about 15,800 books and our chosen sample size was 100 books. We divided our population by our sample to find our jump or our interval of books between each selected book, so that was equivalent to 158 books. We began sampling the nonfiction books starting from the beginning of the nonfiction section and went in increasing order of the call number of the books beginning at 290.1 until we gathered 100 samples. Then we randomly selected which book in the first 158 books to select by assigning each book an integer numbered from 1 to 158 and randomly generated a number from 1 to 158 using our calculator. The randomly generated number would correspond to the so-numbered book, and so we recorded the barcode and publishing date from that first book. From that randomly selected book, we counted 158 books in increasing call number, selected the 158th book, and recorded its barcode and publishing date. We repeated this process 100 times. Afterwards, we emailed Ms. Vernon the barcode data, and she emailed us the record of each book so that we could record the total number of checkouts for each book between the years 2009 and 2018. We're confident that our sampling method will result in randomly selected sample of books because each individual has an equal chance of being selected randomly. Systematic sampling allowed us to reach every bookshelf in the nonfiction section of the library. It was our next best option because simple random sampling was made too difficult. After all, there were so many nonfiction books that we could not get a full list of all the books. We avoided potential bias by randomly selecting our sample to avoid a convenient sample of the nonfiction books in the library. If we had taken a sample of nonfiction books closest to the front of all the shelves, then the checkouts for these books may be higher because students may tend to check out books that are closer to reach, not according to publication dates. This would be confounding because we would not be able to distinguish whether the high number of checkouts is due to the convenience of the location of the books or if it is from the publication dates of the books. Biases we couldn't avoid were due to our sample size being relatively small, so we couldn't cover representative individuals, and this is especially important because our nonfiction book population is extremely large. Also, there could have been non-responses, which were the nonfiction books that were checked out before we could collect data from every 158th book from our jump in the library, which could have added value to our data but were not able to be sampled.
Our data had no correlation, but instead there was a slight exponential association. Together, we tried to undo the exponential association by taking both of our lists and logging them, but again, there is still no correlation. Because we cannot use linear regression analysis for our data, that means we cannot use the age of non-fiction books to predict the number of checkouts. As you can see in these graphs shown, graphs with log and graphs without log all have no correlation. Because our data's residual plot has a somewhat exponential pattern, meaning a linear regression model is not appropriate. Therefore, our data is not linear.
To answer our observational study, we can conclude that the age of nonfiction books does not predict the total number of checkouts for these books very well. There seems to be no association between the age of these nonfiction books and the number of times they are checked out from the library. In conclusion, the historical era of a nonfiction book, such as classical versus modern, is arbitrary to students' preferences of nonfiction books in Markup.